Just wanted to do a little video about Super Tuesday results as they are currently being reported. It's about 11 o'clock here on the West Coast. Texas, a big prize. This is from CNN Politics. Too close to call. 82% of the votes have been recorded there. Biden's at 33%, Sanders at 29%, Bloomberg at 15%. Bernie's going to win California. It looks like he's up by almost 10 points there over Biden. Bloomberg's in third at 17. Maine, Joe Biden won. Well, it hasn't been called yet, but he's ahead by about a point and a half with 91% of the votes in. Warren's in third at 16. So again, Elizabeth Warren staying in the race at this point only benefits Joe Biden, leading to the possibility of a brokered convention. And if she had dropped out before Super Tuesday and endorsed Bernie Sanders like all of the neoliberal centrists did with regards to Joe Biden, Buttigieg and Klobuchar, then we'd probably be looking at a lot different results here, in my opinion. So Maine, too close to call. At this point, Bernie won Utah by a pretty big margin, over 17% gap between Biden. And this one, Massachusetts. Biden won Massachusetts with a little over 33% of the vote. Bernie Sanders at 26.7%. And Elizabeth Warren finishing third in her home state, only garnering 21% of the vote. So again, it's just so disappointing to see Elizabeth Warren just totally sabotaging any type of goodwill she had with the progressive left movement, because again, all she is at this point is a spoiler. I don't think she's picked up more than a handful of delegates from all of today's votes being cast, and again, she's just making it more likely there'll be Joe Biden as the Democratic nomination. And if that happens, again, Joe Biden would just get completely obliterated by Donald Trump, not only in part because of Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline, but also the fact that he has literally decades of horrible policy and voting record, things like the Iraq War, advocating multiple times as a senator for cutting Medicare and Medicaid, bragging about working with segregationists. There's the corruption issue with, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden with regards to Ukraine. He supported the horribly racist and draconian crime bill. He supported NAFTA, all these other horrible trade deals. So again, it's so disappointing and troubling that Elizabeth Warren would rather have Joe Biden, a neoliberal centrist, as the nominee who will guaranteed get defeated handily by Donald Trump, than the progressive populist left candidate who in poll after poll is the only candidate to beat Donald Trump. And again, that's obviously Bernie Sanders. So if Warren had dropped out before Super Tuesday and thrown her support behind Bernie Sanders, he would have won Maine for sure. He would have won Massachusetts. I think he would also won Minnesota. So Biden won Minnesota with 38.6% of the vote. Bernie Sanders has a little bit under 30%, and Warren 15.4%. Biden won Oklahoma, Biden won Arkansas, Biden won Tennessee, Bernie won Colorado, Biden won Alabama, Biden won North Carolina, Biden won Virginia. Bernie Sanders crushed it in his home state of Vermont, winning over 50% of the vote. Biden in second with 22%. And Michael Bloomberg won American Samoa. So again, the states at this point that are too close to call, Bernie will win California. It's just by how big of a margin at this point. He's up by a little bit under 10 percentage points, and Maine is very close. Biden's up by about 1.5%, and he's up by about 3.5 points over Bernie in Texas. But I've seen some articles going around talking about how it's like after the Supreme Court basically gutted the Voting Rights Act, over 700 polling places were closed in Texas. I've heard stories of people, voters in Texas, having to wait in lines for hours just to be able to cast their vote. It's obviously a form of voter suppression. There should be, exponentially more places and easier ways for people to vote. Shouldn't have to wait in line for hours to exercise your constitutional right to vote. Same thing in California. There were still people waiting in line 2 hours plus after the polls have been closed. So obviously, not the news that we were looking for. If you are a Bernie Sanders supporter, if you actually want to get a progressive leftist candidate elected to the White House who actually fight to make the United States work for the working class and not the billionaire owner class as it currently does. And again, the Democratic establishment and the people that are supporting Joe Biden, and I honestly don't know why anybody would support Joe Biden at this point. He is just a train wreck of a candidate. He's lucky if he can string together a couple of sentences that, actually make any type of sense. At a campaign event on Super Tuesday, he confused his sister with his wife. This is the person that the Democratic establishment wants to prop up to go against Donald Trump. I saw this really funny meme yesterday. It was the Weekend at Bernie's movie, those characters. So the Bernie character was Joe Biden, this kind of basically, half alive, half dead character being propped up by Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. And that's, basically all they're doing is propping up this horrible neoliberal centrist candidate who, maybe, 8-10 years ago, when he had more of his mental faculties still with him, he could have, came back and, would have been able to do a better debate performance and campaigning performance, especially if he has to go up against Donald Trump. But there's just nothing there with Joe Biden, and Trump would just hit him with wanting to cut Social Security, supporting NAFTA, supporting the Iraq War, the corruption angle. Trump would just hammer away at all of these, horrible policy positions that Joe Biden has taken throughout the years, and there's a long, illustrious list of them, and Biden's going to have no comeback. He's like, what is he going to say? He's not even going to have a response. It's going to be horrible. Biden will get beat in a landslide. I would not vote for Biden in the general election. No way, no how. And I think a lot of people probably feel the same way, and it's why poll after poll, Bernie Sanders is the only candidate who beats Donald Trump. That should be obviously important, but again, the DNC establishment, these liberal hacks, both in and outside the mainstream media, would rather have 4 more years of Trump than an actual progressive candidate who's going to fight to make the government, the U.S. government, work for the working people. Bernie Sanders is the only choice, and it's just really sad and disappointing to see people vote against their own self-interest. But again, I shouldn't say most, but not everybody votes in their own self-interest. They vote on issues of identity or likability, or some of these other more amorphous things. But we need to get really serious here in the United States. 4 more years of Trump would be hugely disastrous. He would be able to continue to pack the courts with right-wing conservative just nut job justices. He'd be able to further deregulate, environmental protections with regards to the EPA when we need to be doing everything we can to fight climate change. He would further weaken the already very meager welfare state that we have in the US. He's obviously not going to fight for, Medicare for all or a Green New Deal, canceling student loan debt, any of those things. And, Joe Biden wouldn't do those as well. If you're a Joe Biden supporter, name a policy position that Joe Biden has that makes you want to support him. He's a nothing burger candidate, a return to the status quo, and we need a populist left candidate who's actually able to defeat Donald Trump, and that's not Joe Biden, and it never has been. So, but looking on the positive side, because we need to come out of this with some sense of hope and what we can do in the future going forward to make sure Bernie Sanders does win the most delegates. So God damn it, Clarence, sorry, 1 sec. Clarence is messing me up. Keep knocking on doors, keep texting, keep donating if you can, talk to friends and family members, because this super important election, once in a lifetime chance to actually get some really positive things done when we elect a progressive member, or when we elect a progressive president. And I don't think the delegate differentials will be very big between Biden and Bernie after this. I think they'll be pretty close, maybe Bernie with a slight lead or Biden with a slight lead. So we're not at the end of it yet. There's still a lot of delegates up for grabs, and we need to really start hammering away at how horrible of a candidate Joe Biden is, and really attack him on the policies, like wanting to cut Medicare for all, or wanting to cut Medicare, wanting to cut Social Security, doesn't support a Green New Deal, doesn't support, he supported the Iraq War, he talked up about working with segregationists, all these other things. We need to keep really hammering away on that, and we need to go after Joe Biden's base and show them why Bernie Sanders is the best candidate to represent their interests. So that means going after older folks as well as older black folks in particular, and show them why Bernie Sanders is actually the best candidate to represent their interests. So obviously a disappointing night, but again, there's still a lot of work and things that we need to fight for to make sure that Bernie Sanders does end up with the most delegates. And Elizabeth Warren, if you have any type of soul, you would drop out and endorse Bernie. It's obviously very sad and disgusting that she hasn't yet. But if she did and supported Bernie at this point, it would probably still give him a bump in the polls. So let's hope she does that. Those are my thoughts. Leave yours in the comment section down below. Peace. Much love.